So even if I start saying all of this a standard procedure, no issue, that is all well and good. But if the thing at the start is wrong, then this can be textbook good, but you weren't supposed to do it in the first place. But I'm not seeing really, really scary, violent, bad stuff. That doesn't mean it's not corrupt from the other, maybe Bricks and Minifigs is in on it and is instructing them on everything but before. That's still possible. But you're not seeing smoking guns here. You're just seeing police doing their job every day. Hello again, everyone. It is 9 in the morning on June 7th, 2026. We were looking at the comments on the last video related to Bricks and Minifigs scandal. In the comments, we were made aware of, and actually we also found out very quickly after we published that video, that over 23 more hours of footage had gone live. That was 12 hours ago. I have now watched 23 more hours of footage, making it a total of 26 hours of footage in 12 hours. We had 4 screens at 2 times speed, and anytime something happened, it got slowed down and watched at least twice just to make sure we caught everything as best as we could. So suffice it to say, I have not slept, and this is going to be the reaction half an hour after we finished watching the footage and I set up the cameras and put out the laptop. Like, this is right away. Okay. Bias. I saw a lot of comments from people, both thanking myself for disclosing of bias and some people that had criticism of it. So I think that I want to provide some context as to why I think it's important that people disclose their bias at the beginning of pieces that might be controversial or where bias may be relevant. In academia, whenever you publish a paper, especially a paper in anything related to social studies, it is incredibly important in your study design that you include in your limitation section, your methodology, and the way you've constructed your study, the bias of the people involved, because your bias is tainting the way this thing is written, and it is impossible to be unbiased. This is assumed to be basically a truth in the field, that you have to assume you cannot be unbiased, and that someone looking at your work many, many years in the future, whatever, will look at it and will view it a different way than you did. If you are a 6-foot+ tall man with a relatively muscular build compared to average, and you're interviewing someone, you may be getting a completely different reaction than a much shorter stature woman that has a softer voice. This sort of phenomenon has been seen many, many, many sort of studies. The person asking the question bakes bias in through their presentation. I know that I say this and some people will, take umbrage or think that I'm getting into identity politics. No, 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 no. This is just simply people are people and they react differently to different people. And you need to be aware of this because what you say may be tainted. So the declaration of bias is important. Also, and I put a pair of boots in the back for this one because this is going to sound like some bootlicking for a lot of you. So here we go. But for some of you who will disagree with my take on this and some perspective on this, keep in mind that there will be people that have a similar take to mine. And through hearing this take, at least, it helps prepare you for your own counter arguments, so you don't necessarily get surprised by the take. It's useful to hear a different take, even if you want to disagree with it, so you can arm yourself better to disagree with it, by all means. Further, it helps explain sometimes where this sort of methodology comes from, why, I have this sort of take. Look, I generally have a pro-police bias. The reason why I have the pro-police bias, as stated in the other videos, is because I have a lot of friends who work in the police force. I work in a specific area in disaster risk reduction, and I work in an area where you have a lot of people who volunteer their time, are very, very nice, etc. So I meet a lot more of the hero cops as opposed to the, bad apples, as just a matter of percentages in my day-to-day life, and I know that I do, so I know that this is going to paint my perspective on things. I disclose that outright. Now, having said that, I try to give everyone a fair, unbiased take, and I try to look at everything objectively, but I know that I have this lived experience, so with that in mind, I want to say that outright so that everyone knows, got it, okay. So even if you're trying to be unbiased, you might not be able to help it. You still might be biased, okay? So just, you do a lot of academic work. You try to get pretty good at doing critical thinking and some in-depth analysis. You try to be unbiased. You still want to declare what your bias is probably going to be, just to be careful. Okay, so now we've gone through a total of 26 hours of footage. I'm going to assume that everything in the last two videos on this, but I'm going to assume that you know of the background on this and you know the stuff in the previous videos. You've seen that. This is going to be me going through the footage specifically that was leaked, trying to correct any little errors that happened in previous videos, and giving you specific reactions to the things that happened. First correction. In the previous video, I think that I said that the video was hacked. That is inaccurate. At the time, that's what I saw, but now, looking back, it's been made clear that this was actually leaked by the police accidentally through what I believe was a Dropbox. So they put out a statement and they essentially made this stuff public, which is different because that means that it wasn't necessarily illegally obtained. That makes me a lot more comfortable using some of this footage. However, some of this footage involves the interviewing of a minor in a police interview room, which I don't think should be comfortably be shared. Some of this still has social insurance numbers and private phone numbers being shared. So a lot of that, that stuff should stay kind of, redacted in my mind. And there's still sort of that piece, but we'll see if we can add a few shots in here or there to reference things that I'm talking about, because I feel like it helps with some clarification or some clarity. Another thing, there is still, even after all of this boot consuming that is about to occur, there are still some outstanding questions that have not been answered, and based on the footage I've seen so far, I don't think they will be, where something suspicious may be still going on the police side, but it's a lot less than I previously might have thought. Another thing, BAM, Bricks and Minifigs, still has quite a lot to answer for. And even though I think that the police in this case may be out of a lot of the hot water, Bricks and Minifigs surely is not in comparison to this, before going into all the footage. In the previous video, we had talked about the relevance of the police department being very small. As was said in that video, at around 8 minutes and 50 seconds, the size of the police force explains, in my view, a lot of this behavior, but it does not justify it. Explanation and justification are different. It is important to analyze situations. If you analyze a situation, it can help you understand the root cause of why the thing happened. Further, by analyzing a situation, even if you think it isn't justified, it helps you figure out why the unjustified thing happened to try to come up with corrective actions after. When you look at small organizations, what you will often find is they tend to do things quickly and sloppily. That's the criticism they get. Whereas with large organizations, the criticism they get is that they tend to do things slowly because they get dragged down by bureaucracy and endless due diligence. So if you think about small to large organizations on a spectrum, that's the sort of criticism that you have. In watching the previous footage, not the ones that I'm talking about today, that is one of the things that we talked about. I think now, having viewed that is probably less the case in this, but we'll get into that very shortly. Now, without further ado, let's go over all the footage. Now, I've structured this footage into different sections. The 23 hours of additional, now unredacted footage, there's still some footage in it where the police stuff is redacted. I actually have to talk about that now because this is relevant. In the footage, there's a lot of audio redaction. Now, in Utah and in large parts of the United States, apparently police are allowed to basically turn off the volume or turn off their body cam in certain niche circumstances. Once they have an interaction with an individual, they're supposed to have everything recording, video and audio, but when they're consulting with another officer, with a superior, or a few other technicalities, they're apparently allowed to turn off their body cam or even partially turn off their body cam with just the audio. So keep in mind that this is a factor. So police in this area are allowed to basically turn off their body cam. This fundamental problem explains why a lot of this is happening. Now, that doesn't justify this, and this could effectively mean that the law and the rules that surround this are allowing police to sort of get away with things and basically have the sort of mask on, mask off time, if you were to think about it this way, where the law is allowing them to do this. If you have a huge problem with this transparency with body cam and body cam policies, then I think that's the first place that you should go to look at the problem, because it appears to me that they're just allowed to do this. So, point of attack would be that change the law if you don't like this. That'd be the first suggestion there. Because with a lot of this footage, large portions are still, there's no audio, and then a lot of the footage where you see them in the back of the squad car when arrests occur, there's no audio, period. So there's just kind of junk footage, effectively, where nothing's happening. But okay, first section, we have the video on the porch with the undercover Mormon. There is a part of this whole story where RB, Reckless Ben, meets up with someone in a Mormon church parking lot, I believe, and then motivates them to go talk to Josh. So the homeowner in this instance, the main one that keeps coming up in the footage right now, is going to be Josh. So they motivate them to go talk to Josh.
We went to it and showed one of the Mormons there this audio clip. And the Mormon thought that the best thing to do was to have a talk with Josh to save him from going to this outer darkness.
There is a lot of sort of different footage associated with this. We previously saw some of this footage from Reckless Ben's video of the police meeting up with this Mormon kid, but now when you kind of combine all this footage, you get a few different things. So first, the officer that is called to Josh's house to meet up with Undercover Mormon is told on the phone by Josh that there's shenaniganry with fake UPS delivery and rubber chickens. So there's apparently one of Reckless Ben's associates was impersonating as a UPS driver and had this sort of shenanigans to try to get Josh to sign some papers as by impersonating a UPS driver, and there was a package with rubber chickens.
This kid showed up at my door and my partner's door, my business partner. He had like a fake UPS hat on. He obviously didn't work for UPS, and he hands me this package. He's like, "Oh yeah, sign it." I'm looking at it, I'm like, looking at him, and he's got like a taped UPS thing on his hat. I'm like, "You work for UPS?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like,
the other thing that happens in this interaction, and this is on the phone when there's basically a Josh calls 911 and the dispatcher transfers him to the officer. So this is the officer conversation. We don't hear the 911 call. In that interaction, Josh also indicates that he's no longer going to play nice if these kids stay around. And there's some indication that he's going to do something violent or defend his property.
One of the dispatchers made a note here saying that you were going to shoot someone.
I said, if they try to break into my house.
Okay.
Like they're scouting out, they're taking pictures inside my windows.
Okay.
They don't just, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah.
If they we're not engaging. I'm not answering the door. I'm not going outside. I'm just saying, if they come inside, they'll have a surprise.
I thought this sounded a lot like castle doctrine. If you don't know what castle doctrine is, it's basically the idea that your home is your castle and you can defend it from an invader, potentially even with lethal force. There are many places in the United States that have this or a version of this. Canada actually doesn't. So this is a huge difference between the US and Canada. In Canada, if someone invades your home, you're supposed to effectively call the police and then not really defend yourself. Like, Canadians aren't supposed to have firearms for self-defense purposes. It's actually explicitly stated we're not supposed to. This is a controversial point in Canada right now politically, where some people think that Canadians should be able to have firearms for self-defense and some do not. That's a thing. There's a debate on both sides of that. This is a huge difference from what's normative in Canada. The idea of castle doctrine is a thing here. So if you're watching this in Canada and you're kind of viewing this differently, this is relevant. Basically, Josh is indicating that he's willing to use lethal force if necessary, or at minimum some serious violent force on kids, if it doesn't matter who it is, if they keep bothering his family. He's indicating this to the officer.
Obviously, our concern is anyone having any kind of firearms or weapons.
No, there's no firearm. I said if they come inside, they'll get a surprise. I'm not shooting anybody. There's no firearms.
Okay.
I'm tired of these guys stalking me.
Now, whether or not you believe Josh is telling the truth in this case isn't really relevant. This officer is registering that he needs to de-escalate a situation before someone gets hurt in the public. That is clear on the call. So he starts trying to de-escalate Josh. That is obvious. He starts asking him questions about it. Does he have firearms in the house? And he starts going through that whole sort of threat assessment because he's viewing Josh as a potential threat to the people that are potentially harassing Josh. But still, you can see this de-escalation is occurring. And this officer is going into this interaction with that. Like he's going in with that whole sort of interaction. You can see this already. So the officer shows up. The undercover Mormon is separated from Josh effectively. They're not really at contact with each other. The undercover Mormon is at the door and Josh is in his house. They're separated. They're both interviewed separately. And basically it's a he said, whatever sort of situation. Josh shows the officer a bunch of footage from his door camera. And Josh makes the claim that he told the undercover Mormon to leave, and the undercover Mormon makes the claim that Josh said he was coming right out. From what I could see, there was no evidence to either case on that, but the police go into this trying to de-escalate someone who is allowed to say get off my property, who is apparently ready to get violent, and they have a history of, by this point, Reckless Ben having multiple trespass warnings in multiple jurisdictions, and the police in other jurisdictions are looking at bringing him up on charges of stalking, and that's all on file. So the police are going into this with a lot kind of baked in, and you can see from the reactions that a lot of this is basically bog standard. Like this is like standard reaction, exactly what you'd expect. Basically, they interview the undercover Mormon. They go through basically a spiel of, you shouldn't get involved with dangerous people, get on with your day, and then he gets on with his day. The non-case officer, the other officer that's talking with the undercover Mormon for a while the case officer is talking with Josh, has a relatively charming conversation with him about fishing spots in the area.
You fish? Yeah?
I do.
Dude, well, if you're looking to go, I found this crazy spot.
This is an effective nothing burger. For those of you who have seen, significant evidence of Bricks and Minifigs and Josh and other people involved in the situation trying to give police ammo to try to go after Ben, there's a lot of that going on, which speaks to potential malicious intent, malfeasance, whatever, on the parts of Bricks and Minifigs, but I don't see the police officers acting on it any more than pre-existing stalking charges, and the police have a bone, they're going to go after it. That's what I'm seeing so far. That's it. That's all that really happens with the Mormon one. I've seen multiple angles from that with multiple officers. That's pretty much it. Nothing big there. With the video with the heroin bust in the car. They pull him over and there's suspected heroin in the vehicle where there was no heroin found. Reckless Ben is cooperative. The police do a search of him. They do a search of the vehicle. Nothing is found. There's a canine officer and their dog. The dog detects something. There was a conversation between the officer and him, this associate, and apparently they kind of both conclude that it could relate to someone who was in the car that smoked pot before, and then the odor just got on the door and it triggered the dog, so it was like a whatever type of thing.
But I overheard you say you've had quite a few people in and out of your car.
Just throughout the last 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah.
Any known drug users in that group?
I think the people that were in it a few days ago, they smoked weed here and there, but I don't think other than that. So.
Yeah, because odor, it's the craziest thing. It can sit and just fester for a while. They touch it and then they touch your door handle. The dogs pick up on that even if it's a couple of days, even up to a week.
Okay.
So
One thing that comes up frequently is that apparently in this vehicle, there's been more than 30 people coming and going in it in the last 3 days without a lot of verification going on. So the officers advise Reckless Ben's associate that he should probably be vetting who gets in his car more often, because if he gets caught with something that somebody else is, it's his problem because it's his car.
same with them, having 30 different people in your car. If you don't know them that well, you don't know what they're into, right? So
yeah, for sure. I don't know anything about these people when they come in my car, so I got to be more careful.
I know you said you know Ben, but if we would have popped you, say, with Christian in the car and he has some stuff on him, then that also goes on you, right?
Understood.
So I understand that you're trying to film content, you're trying to make a living, do that type of stuff, but maybe vet these guys a little bit better, because then stuff like this happens, right?
I do understand that.
So they're advising him on things. There's no real charges laid. It's a lot of kind of dad talking to their child energy sort of thing going on there.
Thank you for being so nice, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for making it easier for us. Just chatting with us. Obviously, that goes a long way. So,
Yeah, there's not much really to do with that. They're acting on a tip they got that there's heroin in a vehicle. Now, the question of how they got that tip and why they acted on it and what happened there, that is not answered in this footage, and that is a significant question. From what I understand, and I don't have anything to verify this, but from what I've heard, apparently, that tip comes from something associated with Bricks and Minifigs, basically sicking the police on Ben with a bogus charge. That is very, very interesting. Now, the police are just going to go with whatever. Like, you tell the police to do something and they believe it's from even reasonably credible source and they have the time or manpower to justify it, they're going to run down a lead. But that doesn't mean that misinforming the police is okay. We're separating these two things here. The way that traffic stop was conducted, I don't really have a problem with anything in that footage. There's no smoking gun in that footage. Nothing really bad happened there. But that doesn't mean that the stop should have happened at all. Just because stop was kind of like textbook fine doesn't mean that it should have happened. Separate the two things, okay? There is an interesting thing related to telling the driver about the dog. They instruct Reckless Ben's associate that he's walking a dangerous line.
Like I said, that's why you're not being charged and arrested and being booked in.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate you.
But I'm just saying you're walking a thin line by being even.
It's a lot of data energy stuff. Oh, also, actually related to this, they instruct him also that in reference to Josh, actually, they don't name him, but they tell the driver that the driver shouldn't give Josh any more ammunition if he's in the wrong, saying, look, you know, this guy stole the Legos, etc., $200,000, old man collection. Like, he goes through the whole spiel. And the police officers say, look, if he's in the wrong, don't give him more ammunition here.
Don't give this guy ammunition if he's in the wrong.
I understand that.
Right?
Yeah.
Basically, they're saying you're giving him an excuse to get us involved. Stop doing that. That's a bit telling to me, right? And I'm seeing that show up a bit where, you know, the police are kind of playing both sides here, which is generally what they should be doing in a civil case where they're trying to de-escalate. That was an interesting thing that I think should have been there in some other footage. It's also revealed in this clip that the driver here is the person that did the UPS prank with the rubber chickens, and they instruct him that this is a federal crime. They say, like, they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to escalate. They're not going to bring him in and then call, you know, the feds or anything. But they said, look, if Josh wants to press charges and call the feds, he can. So you might want to just kind of lay low here.
Your buddy already told me that you're the one that showed it yesterday in the UPS. We were trying to have him sign something. That's a federal crime, so we're not going to take action on it. But if he decides to, or the mail office somehow gets into it and they report it, it's something coming down the pipe that's going to really jam you up.
Yeah, I apologize.
Don't let him manipulate you. Don't let anybody manipulate you. If you're not going to do it on your own, don't do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I appreciate you.
That's instructive. That's basically everything that you get from the heroin clip. Other than that, look, they're going to bring a dog and they're going to search the vehicle. Should that have happened at all? Should that tip have existed? That's a very interesting question. Probably not. But once it is, they're there. Next clip. Paper service clip. Right, okay. There is so much footage here. And I'm very happy that we actually got the rest of this footage that wasn't really present in the previous part. Because here we actually get the arrest piece and we get everything leading up to it, which is really good. And we get the full explanation of what's going on with service. So a few things. First, it's indicated in this footage by the officers, and they explicitly say to Reckless Ben that they don't serve civil papers. They tell him that they don't serve civil papers, and this is done actually by one of the officers that's not serving the paper. I found that with a lot of these clips, sort of the assisting officers, the non-case officers that just kind of lay back and try to just, they're like, I don't know what's going on, man, but I'm just trying to do my job here.
So we just get, that's why I'm down here, is just kind of help support whatever's going on. So I don't know all the details. If I did, I'd try and help you out, but
they're pretty casual about it, and they're giving away a lot of advice kind of for free to everybody involved or whoever's talking to them, because they're just de-escalating. One of them in particular actually tells Reckless Ben that they don't serve civil papers, which is interesting. I wasn't sure if they did or not. This might be department policy for them. I don't know. But for whatever reason, they seem convinced they don't serve civil papers.
yeah, no, they're probably just verifying the documents, but it's also, it's an interesting situation too. We typically don't serve civil papers, so we can stand by and keep the peace to make sure that nobody like picks a fight or does anything criminal while we're around, but we typically can't serve civil papers.
If you know of this being different and this police officer is lying, let me know in the comments, please. But so far through like Google search, what I can find, what this officer's saying, that seems to match up. If he's lying, then that's interesting. But I wasn't able to determine the veracity of that. In the paper service clip, there's a private call between the police officer and Josh. In this call, he says to the officer that if they continue stalking him or getting near his property, he will consider it breaking and entering and will surprise them.
I'm just saying, if they come inside, they'll have a surprise.
This is the explicit sort of callback to the castle doctrine thing I was talking about before. This is said explicitly to the officer that shows up to what would be the third police visit, I believe, in the 4 visits that lead to Reckless Ben getting arrested the first time in the whole service situation. So that clip is seen, and we see the officer basically recognizing this as a potentially escalating situation that could result in violence, and basically rushes to the scene. He gets to the scene and he basically calms down Josh. Most of the work there is to try to get him to basically just calm down and not escalate the situation. Josh can trespass anyone from his property he wants. He can just declare that whoever for any reason isn't allowed to come on, and he can say, hey police, I want you to tell that person, that person, that person, and that person they can't come on my property. And the police have to basically go, sure, because you can do that here. You can just say you can't come on my property. When you look at this from many different angles, you could see this as he's just kind of abusing the sort of free pass you have to tell people to get off your property or to not get on your property, which you can, which is potentially a waste of police resources. And he starts just throughout a lot of this footage saying to police, you know, basically you see that car over there, trespass them. You see them over there, trespass them. Like he does it a lot, which, you know, if you side with Bam, it's because he's an aggrieved father who is concerned for his family. If you side with Reckless Ben, it's because he is, you know, weaponizing the police to his advantage. There's the different arguments on this, but the point is he's doing it regardless. That happens, and there's some back and forth between Reckless Ben and the officer. Very interestingly, in the back and forth, what happens is the officer comes back and says he didn't want the papers.
He does not want the papers.
Now, when I saw that, I was like, well, isn't that the same as refusing service? So I looked it up, and I'm not a lawyer here, but just looking at the process, I would be interested to know if this is actually how this works or if it's like a loophole. But stick with my logic here for a second. Police officer says, let me show that to him. Police officer goes to Josh. Josh says, I don't want those. They're fake. Police officer ends up saying these are real. And then for whatever reason, Josh says, I don't want to see those. He doesn't want them. Police officer goes back to Reckless Ben and his process server and says he doesn't want the papers. At that point, he doesn't say it in the footage, but I think he should actually say this in the footage, and this is one of the things that I think Reckless Ben could have done better. At that point, his process server, I think this is valid, the process server should have said, does that mean that he refused service? Because I think that that would qualify as a refusal of service. And if that's the case, that's all he needs. So the officer coming back and basically giving in the papers back, I think might actually qualify as refusal of service because of how the officer phrased it. I think he might actually have that, which is interesting. He might not, I don't know, but I would be interested to see if he does. The officer then basically goes back and forth and clearly indicates that he's viewing this as stalking. I think there is a read here where the officer sees that there is no possible way that this is going to get resolved. He's just going to stand there and they're not going to let them serve it. The officer, from what I can see, just decides to essentially escalate this and end the situation by arresting Ben.
Am I being arrested? Yeah, I'm being arrested right now. Really?
Now, should he have done that? My opinion, I think refusal of service, that being orchestrated better, would have resolved this issue, and then you don't have this problem. I think it could have just been done. I mean, we've said this in every video, like that would have been far simpler. I'm not sure. And the reason I'm not sure about the yes or no is because if he's viewing this as he thinks that Josh is actually about to basically just blow, like explode with rage, and he's worried that he's gonna, you know, come outside and attack something. He's trying to de-escalate the situation. Should you arrest someone to prevent that though? I don't like that. Like, I don't like that idea. He technically has the other, suspicions on stalking. Like, he has the area to do it. He's allowed to. It's tricky. I'm not sure on that one, to be honest. Because Reckless Ben's just going to sit there forever. He'll just stay there. He's not going to leave. Yeah, I could be convinced either way on the risk of that, given the situation. Here's the other problem too, okay? And this is the other thing that I wrote down here, and I think most people agree with me on this. I haven't looked at a bunch of the legal lawyers reacting to this, look at this yet. Like, he's a YouTuber, he came with a process server. If the process server didn't come with him, this hypothetically would have gone differently. Like, it complicates it. So, I don't know. Anyways, I think that that's interesting. I can see how that falls within the realm of discretion of what an officer is allowed to do. I see the, risk of person escalating and the whole, it's fuzzy, but it's within the bounds of what a police officer would normally do. So that one doesn't look suspicious to me anymore, frankly. I still think that for all of us that know the history of this, that Bricks and Minifigs here is doing some shenanigans of their own. But on the police side is the police side. Okay, the GoFundMe sign and the arrest there. I had some serious issues with that one because of the aggressive grabbing on the phone.
And Lieutenant Adamson can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to seize your phone right now.
Do not do that. You understand me? Right now you're attempting to destroy evidence.
And the video, actually, the footage provided a bunch of context for that. Okay. Timeline. This is really important. Reckless Ben's associates, they put up the GoFundMe sign. They tell the police that they got permission from the property owner. This is very important because they put it up on the property owner's fence. They did actually do this.
They just said they have your permission. I was just checking with you. And it sounds like they do have your permission. Cool. Thank you.
Came to talk to me.
Okay. Is he nice?
Yeah.
Hi, puppy.
In the initial footage you see, not this leaked footage, in the initial footage in the Reckless Ben video, you see the police officer just kind of go back and take the sign down, and it's like a, why? What do you mean? They're allowed.
Right now, I don't think you guys break the law.
But this other police officer wasn't able to accept this reality.
We're gonna take it down.
In the body cam footage, the police officer goes and meets with the property owner. They say, hey, did you want to put that sign up? And they said, sure. And then they said, okay, but do you know what's on that sign? Do you want to come look at it? And then the property owner says, yeah, okay. The property owner goes out, they see what the sign is, and then the property owner instructs the police that they can take the sign down. So the property owner rescinds the ability for that sign to be up. The police basically ask the property owner if they can take the sign down.
Is that okay? Because I don't want your neighbor to be upset at you because they're posting a sign. Have you seen the sign?
No.
Do you want to see it? Okay. I don't think that's appropriate.
Oh.
So I don't think it's a good thing. So
it's not good.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay. No, and that,
it's just a GoFundMe for a family.
yeah, they're upset with this guy, and so they're posting this. So we're gonna take it down, and then we may come and talk to you again. I don't think so, but thank you very much.
They can take the sign down. So first off, that's cleared. I have no issue with them taking the sign down there. Now, after they take the sign down, they do go through the whole thing of seeing if they can charge people or not. In the Reckless Ben video, that's viewed one way. When I see it in the body cam footage, it seems pretty normal. But partway through, they go through a bit of a thing. Then when the consultation happens, you have no audio for an extended period of time, and they're talking, and there's no way to tell what they're saying. So there's a big question mark in there. That could be normal, you just check to see if you can charge people with things stuff. It could be, who knows? Before they go silent, though, there is an expressed interest in, we'll give them the sign back and send them on their way if there's nothing to charge them with. It's whatever. With what audio we do have, it looks normal. But we don't know what's in that audio we don't have. So, who knows? There's dead audio there. Who knows? I'm not going to just say it's all okay or it's all not okay. You don't know. The police warn Reckless Ben's associates, because Reckless Ben isn't present at the time there, that he's been charged with criminal stalking and that they could get caught up in it as accessories. For context, the sign they're putting up is directly across the street from Josh's house. And I mean, he walks out his porch and he's staring at it. It's directly across the street.
She's taking it down. This is her property. We're working this out. Give us a minute. We'll be over in a sec, okay?
They say that this is the perfect spot for a drone shot because they've consulted a drone scientist.
The drone, it's going to be the best drone angle. We hired a drone scientist, and he said this was a really good spot.
we're doing shenanigans. We're doing shenanigans. Come on. Okay. Like, we all know what's happening here. You're allowed to do shenanigans. However, they have, once again, criminal stalking here and potential accessory. The police have some ammunition in this event to go, guys, we can't be doing this. So I'm looking at this differently now. One of Reckless Ben's associates basically says it was all idea, it's all his thing, and essentially removes the other people from this.
But this was all my idea. So all here because of me. Ben, I just called him because he's my friend, but he's done dealing with this.
He ends up getting arrested. The footage of his arrest in the Reckless Ben video, there's no Miranda rights read, and it's just kind of like phone is grabbed. In this video, the Miranda rights are read. Prior to the Miranda rights being read, the officer that ends up grabbing his phone fairly aggressively explains to him that he's going to seize his phone and that he's going to want to check it for basically evidence. He asks if he can. Reckless Ben's associate says no, so he explicitly says he can't seize it, or he can't search it. So he can seize it, but he can't search it. This becomes important. And then the other officer who's there reads him his full Miranda rights. That's all, right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court of law, right to an attorney, blah, blah, whole thing. And that's all good. And then the phone interaction happens.
We're going to need your phone.
Lieutenant Adams, correct me if I'm wrong. Seize your phone.
Yep, let me see your phone. Don't. Do not do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You understand me? Right now, you're attempting to destroy evidence.
Now, when the phone interaction happens, looking at it from the officer's body cam, the way he's touching the phone, I can see how that looks suspicious. Sure, I can see the aggressive grabbing of the phone. It's still a bit, but you know what? With all the police interactions I've seen in my day, and all the times this has gone very wrong, let's pick our battles, okay? Like, I'm sorry. I've seen some stuff that gets pretty hairy, and that's just, it's a grabbing of a phone, okay? It's a bit aggressive, yes. If he wants to follow up with his own lawyer, by all means, it's his right, and he should do so if he feels he needs to, but it's not that big of a deal for me. Now, having said that, after that occurs, that officer interviews some other people. It talks with the homeowner that took the sign down again. And he says in that he was trying to stop the phone from being locked out by continually activating it.
The phone locked on me. I was trying to preserve that, but we may have to go the hard way on that. So we're almost done, but
that means he was trying to potentially leave it open for search. That is suspicious. I'm not a lawyer. To me, that sends spidey senses tingling. That piece in this still looks suspicious. He explicitly asked him if he was allowed to search the phone. He said no. And in the explanation, he said that if need be, he will get a warrant, which means he doesn't have one.
I got to get this phone to the PD, and I don't want it to close because I want Wyatt to burn a warrant on it so we can verify this guy was or was not coordinating with Ben to violate that stalking charge.
You can't search that phone. Yeah, that is suspicious, no question. The rest of it, though, pretty standard procedure. But it's suspicious. Can't search that phone. Oh, also in this section, in one of the interactions with Josh in the same long thing of footage, we find out that they have been instructed to not be abrasive with Josh.
Our contact with you is not to be abrasive.
No.
It's just we have all these people coming into it. You saw the other guy, all that stuff.
You could be abrasive.
Now, we don't know why they've been instructed this, but there are many reasons why this could be the case. From my viewpoint, the two main reasons that would sort of justify why they would say this would be, one, he's the property owner, you're talking to him on his property, and he's already kind of edgy on edge. So you don't need to aggravate him more than necessary if you can avoid it, number one. And number two, he is very forthcoming. Now, from many people's perspective, he's forthcoming with lies, but that still means he's forthcoming. So he's giving police a lot of information, either information to go after Reckless Ben with, or information to go after Josh with, because if they're giving him a lot of lies, that's a lot of proof that he's lying. If someone's just kind of spilling the beans to you on everything and they're just continually doing it and they're not being aggressive, you can de-escalate them and allow them to keep running their mouth. No one involved in this situation is talking with a lawyer present, which is certainly a decision. But anyways, Next one, we have the Airbnb raid. The Airbnb raid looked very suspicious. When I was first initially, saw the Reckless Ben video, from his perspective, it was, we raided this for Legos, and why are people being brought out for handcuffs, and where are the Legos they left too fast? Like, it was like, whoa. From what I've also heard, and I haven't been able to verify this, but I've also heard that this raid was justified via a warrant that was obtained after the raid, and the warrant had to do with Legos. If that's the case, then this is likely not a legal raid. Now, there are reasons why you can raid a property without a warrant. But if you were doing that, why did you go get the warrant? I don't know the details on that, but if that's the case, then this whole raid is suspect because it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Just like with some of the other stops and other things, it's the idea of if this thing at the start is wrong, none of this matters because this thing at the start was wrong. So even if I start saying all of this is standard procedure, no issue, that is all well and good. But if the thing at the start is wrong, then this can be textbook good, but you weren't supposed to do it in the first place. I think this concept is something called fruit of the poisonous tree. So if the tree is poisoned and the fruit drops off, it doesn't matter. Like, you weren't supposed to do it in the first place. Just keep that in mind, because I'm about to go through this. I'm going to make so many of you mad with my analysis of this raid. But the issue with it, I think, is that whole poisonous tree problem. It's not the raid itself. Now look, they knock on door, as far as I'm aware, they announce self, people come out, everybody out, police order them, the people comply, they arrest them all. One of them, the lieutenant's body cam, clearly has the lieutenant grab Reckless Ben and arrest him, or put him in handcuffs.
Everybody step outside. No. Don't move like that. You understand me?
After that, he walks in and we hear that Reckless Ben was the primary target.
Engaged when we were walking up, 5 in custody. We got the main target in custody as well.
It could be many things. For most of you, you will interpret that as the purpose of the raid was not to find Legos, but the purpose of the raid was to obtain Reckless Ben. That could be justified in that they're trying to find a person that has multiple warrants for stalking, but that's not what the late warrant is for. So while they may have a reason that is legitimate to get Reckless Ben, that reason should be in writing. Right? Hopefully you can see what the distinction I'm making here. Sure, you have this ammunition, but the judge has to sign off. That's kind of what I see there. But look, other than that, everyone in this whole thing is very polite. There's no brandishing of weapons. There's no struggling with officers. There's no unnecessary aggression.
If you guys get released, then you can figure out to get your property with the owner of the Airbnb, okay? But you saw we didn't come out with anything else. We're not planning on going back in. You guys are going to go to the PD. We're going to figure out what we're doing, and then some of you may end up going to jail. Some of you may end up getting released. We'll see what happens.
The initial grabbing of Ben, they're a bit more aggressive there, but you can see from the previous history that they're viewing this as like a serial stalking, like sort of ringleader case.
Separate the one in blue from the rest of them. His property's behind him.
They're viewing him as this sort of like harassment stalking mastermind, which, agreed, could be Bricks and Minifigs putting that idea into their head. I could see how the police could be being led astray by them. And this might not be the police necessarily being malicious in intent here. There's two different possibilities here as to how they could come to that conclusion. It's possible they're malicious, but a lot of what I'm seeing is it's sort of, the report led to the report, led to the report, led to this sort of buildup of all these different reports. They go, well, this guy is this, and then they just start thinking a certain way about him. So anyways, that happens. What is very interesting, though, is at the end of the clip on the lieutenant's body cam, right before he cuts it, we hear him refer to douchebags by the property and say explicitly, whoops, shouldn't have said that. Click, body cam goes off.
Are these douchebags probably have property? Oops. Shouldn't have said that.
Okay. He technically can do that because he's about to consult with an officer. He can, but at minimum, that looks really bad. And that provides context that they're probably talking differently when the camera's on or off. When the senior officer is doing that, that leads me more to believe now, and that is only one incident, yes, but okay, you're talking differently, you know, when the camera's on or camera's off. I know of some incidents in some other countries where police don't swear. And like, they don't swear. It does not happen. If a police officer swears on an open radio or something that even only the police frequency hears, it could be their badge. It could be their job. There's a certain level of decorum that's expected in many police agencies, depending on the country you're in. So when I hear that sort of stuff coming through, I start to get it. It's okay. So I see. This really is quite casual when the camera's off. Fair enough. And look, people are humans and they need to live their lives, but that one doesn't look good. Anyways, keep in mind that they're allowed to do that. You might not like that they're allowed to do that, so you might want to change the way body cams are handled. Fair enough. Next one, we have the detective questioning Reckless Ben. So we have now, he's being questioned by the detective, and the detective fully Miranda's him. He reads him his Miranda rights, full thing. He is very upfront with it, and then Reckless Ben just starts talking. What is being made very clear in this whole incident is that everyone here is like allergic to lawyers. everyone, Bricks and Minifigs, Reckless Ben, and all of their various people that are associated with everyone just talks to police all the time. And look, this is a bad idea. I'm just going to talk to you guys about Miranda rights for a second. Once a police officer reads you your Miranda rights, they are no longer your friend. When they read you Miranda rights, those exist so that the officer has to explicitly tell you, we are now about to enter into a relationship where I am your enemy. My job is to find reasons to charge you. That's the point of the Miranda rights, okay? The Miranda rights specifically state that anything you say can and will be used against you. That's not for you. When the police officer reads you Miranda rights, you should stop talking because they're not trying to help you anymore. That's the point of the Miranda rights. So there are a lot of people talking way too much after that has been said. But anyways, the detective is probing for information related to stalking charges. When you have the back context of the other body cam footage, that becomes very apparent. Reckless Ben is not reckless. Well, he's reckless because he doesn't have a lawyer, but he's not violent. So he's non-violent. He makes the detective job very easy. The detective basically doesn't have to talk at all. And at one point, he has to go to the bathroom, and the detective escorts him to the bathroom. That is normal. They're not going to leave you in the bathroom unattended, generally speaking, when you've already been read your Miranda rights. That's pretty normal. That was a pretty standard questioning event with someone being cooperative, where the detective was cordial and had a very easy day. So that was that. Then there's other footage of the same detective interviewing Reckless Ben's associates. He doesn't Miranda any of them, and you can see how the questions are different. He probes for information involving the stalking charges on Reckless Ben, and other than that, he's not particularly interested in them, you can see. If one of them started talking about specific things that they had done wrong, he would probably, I'd assume, start reading Miranda rights immediately, because what they say before that can't be used the same way. But all of them eventually get let go. And one of them, after the interview, comments that they are stressed out. They're under a fair amount of stress from the whole experience, and asks for their inhaler. They clarify that it's non-emergent, but the detective immediately goes and basically goes through multiple locked doors, fumbles with keys, and gets their inhaler. Finds the officer that's nearby. I need to find this bag. Where's this inhaler? Doesn't, stop for anything, gets them their inhaler, and it's like, nope, got to make sure they're okay.
I'm gonna step back in there. I gotta talk.
Could I have my inhaler, perchance? It's in a green bag.
Do you need it right this second?
Yes.
Okay, I can get that. Yeah, let me get it for you, and then I'll be back with you, okay? I do have to shut this for now, though, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Sierra's green bag.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Does she need her inhaler?
She needs her inhaler. Okay. It's right here.
Should be right there.
Yeah, I got it. Is this it? With the little bear on the back?
Yes.
Perfect. Yep. You can just keep it because we don't want you to have an issue.
Thank you so much.
This isn't poor treatment here, guys. Okay, like everyone's cooperating. Everyone's being nice. Now, look, everyone's making the police's job easier for them because they're just opening their mouths constantly. But I'm not seeing really, really scary, violent, bad stuff. That doesn't mean it's not corrupt from the other, maybe Bricks and Minifigs is in on it and is instructing them on everything, but before that's still possible. But you're not seeing smoking guns here. You're just seeing police doing their job every day. Like this could be part of, a how to do policing documentary on the specific, like once the thing starts happening, and it would be kind of normal. Nothing's really here. This could also be part of a how to make your defense attorney's job really hard documentary. Now, when the detective charges Reckless Ben, and this happens, a separate footage, when he charges him, he gives him a full explanation of the charges. He kind of explains what led up to it and where this is going. And he gives him more than he needs to.
We're still doing these patterns of showing up at people's house, like near their house, posting these posters in front of their house. It still kind of meets that element. And a lot of this stuff you may have to just get an attorney and fight it in the criminal side of court, right? But I'm just kind of giving you the benefit of the doubt and explaining to you of kind of where we're at, rather than it's just like, hey, you're under arrest for stalking, and then you have questions like, well, what's going on, right?
He's still trying to be kind of friendly with them. There's many reasons why you do like rapport-based interrogations and why you would do this. If you're curious about knowing more about like how this works, you can look up the FBI's cross-cultural rapport-based interrogation method. That's probably still findable on Google. It was the competing method against the CIA's waterboarding stuff in the early 2000s after 9/11. So there was this rapport-based interrogation method where you weren't torturing people. You were instead trying to kind of be their friend and they'd spill the beans to you. I'm seeing a lot of rapport-based interrogation methods here. That's standard practice. It's you're getting information with kindness. It works, but he's very cordial. He gives him more than he needs to give him. So like the detective helps him out more than he needs to, frankly. And this is fairly standard. There's an issue where the cuffs feel a bit tight and they loosen them for him. And it's sure, they clarify, we want to make sure that you're not unnecessarily injured or uncomfortable, and it's fine. Next one, there's an interview of the 16-year-old. There's two 16-year-olds actually that are arrested in the raid. So there's two 16-year-olds that are arrested. There's one of them where you have the full interview. This should be redacted. You shouldn't, well, a lot of this stuff shouldn't be public in general, but I mean, like, this is a legal minor. This should not be public. Anyways, during this footage, they realize that they have a 16-year-old in custody in a holding cell, and the officer immediately takes them out of the holding cell and brings them to a private room for juveniles. They put them there. They call their father in, they call their parent. They don't talk to them until their parent gets there. And then they have a fairly calm meeting with the father present, of course. No Miranda rights are ever read. The father says that the second you started reading them, I was going to start getting very, very, I think the term was lawyers from hell. And then the father comments that because they never did that, this was all hunky-dory, or he didn't say hunky-dory, but you get the idea. The police officer basically says, we didn't even think you were going to be there. We don't want to get involved. You're good. They're forthcoming. There's no real issues. There's a back and forth where this is apparently a straight A student that grows their hair out as the longer that they get straight A's for. And then one of them and their friend, after it gets really, really long, shaves their head for cancer patients to have wigs. Like there's a lot of just kind of friendly back and forth. It's reasonably clear to me that the father is probably a friendly, respected member of the community in the same town. So I'm not surprised that the police basically just want to get this particular individual kind of off their plate associated with this. So that's that. And that is actually all of the related footage, because everything else has no audio. Sorry, there's one piece of footage where Reckless Ben in the back of a squad car is being transported, and he has a conversation with the officer about what his favorite music is, and they talk about The Strokes and I think Arcade Fire, because they get on they start talking about alternative rock, and apparently Reckless Ben doesn't really like country music and rap, so they start talking about, and the officer's really interested in what music people like because he does driving a lot and he just likes to find out because he's curious, and it's just like his thing that he does.
I listen to everything. It's one of the good things, not good things, but like just hearing what people like.
Oh, nice.
I do this a lot, and just hearing what's your favorite kind of music? I should ask.
Ooh.
So anyways, that happens. 26 hours total of footage, guys. Okay. Okay. There was a lot of footage, and a lot of it was just like pointless. So, okay. There are 4 outstanding issues that have still not been addressed in all of this. One, which I've said many times, the legitimacy of the initiation of certain police actions, like certain traffic stops, the raids, etc. The initiation of them is still in question. Now remember, if the initiation is not legitimate, then everything that comes from it is also not legitimate. So even if the raid wasn't violent and there was no issues with the arrest or the questioning, if the reason why that initiation happened isn't good, all of that's not good. That's my initial thinking on this. Okay, so that's the first thing. And there's a few cases of that that are still really relevant. Second, the searching of that phone. Now, he locked on him, so he didn't search it, but there was that attempt. So there is the question and the statement of, is that okay or not? And from what I've seen, that looks pretty suspicious. So that's 2. 3, we have the redaction policies around body cam. Now, there is also the phone call that happened between Reckless Ben and the one person who worked for the police associated with talking about redacted body cam footage. But in general, there's the piece around how redacted body cam footage is handled in general. And I believe that is a state of Utah and American, sorry, different country guys, I believe that's a 4th/5th Amendment for you guys style thing. So there's issues with how body cams are handled, but this is like a state policy level problem. I think what is happening is the police are allowed to do it and people probably don't want the police to be allowed to do it. So change the law, right? So I think that's the problem that's happening with a lot of this. So there's that. And then 4, and this is the big one. This is the huge one that I keep trying to, say to you guys, even if I do all this enjoying the flavor of boot situation stuff that I know some of you hate, there's the question of what's going on with bricks and minifigs. Because there's still that big question mark of, are they weaponizing the police effectively against this guy? And are they lying, going about doing what they shouldn't be doing? And what's happening to them because of this? Because look, some of the other stuff in the Reckless Ben versus bricks and minifigs thing, that whole backstory in the civil part gives a lot of context for this. So even though I'm basically coming forward here with my view on this being that the police are basically just doing their job and I'm not really seeing anything here that's that suspicious, there's a few incidences where the law probably should be written a bit better to be to the benefit of transparency to the public. And small town police playing fast and loose with certain rules, which admittedly only happen really in a few instances because most of this seems pretty standard to me, but that is a concern and that is a perfectly valid concern. I think that once again, the bigger issue here is with bricks and minifigs. I don't think in this case there's that much of a smoking gun with the police. Now look, more body cam footage may come out, but at this point, I am 26 hours in and we don't really have the smoking gun on the police here from the body cam footage. We might with some of the court filings, the other things around the fruit of the poisonous tree, the stuff I mentioned, but there's not much here in the footage. So we've reviewed all of it. We're going to put this out and then I'm going to find out that 5 hours after I finished this recording, another 30 hours of footage came out. But unfortunately, I need to get on a plane in a couple hours to do some stuff for a client. And that is going to put me in what's known as a Faraday cage, where I'm not going to be accessing the internet. So I'll check back in with you when I return to reality. Poof, I disappear. I've reviewed 23 hours of unredacted body cam footage in the last 10 hours.
Great.
So I'm doing this one, and then I'm sending it to John, and then I don't care for a week.